The meeting will begin in 1 minute.
Welcome everybody to the City Council of Sioux Falls' informational meeting. Today is the 2nd of May. Welcome to spring, finally. We've got a beautiful day out there, and it's just fun to see everybody's attitudes and outlook being a little bit brighter with the sun shining and the and the weather, the heat a little bit, the temperature a little bit higher. I had to drive to Fargo yesterday, and it was not fun. And so I got a little taste of winter again, and I'm glad to have it gone. I would entertain a report from Mr. Kiley on the Land Use Committee meeting of April 18th.
And thank you very much. We had just a single topic on the agenda that afternoon, and it was actually the rental housing registration updates by Councilor Urbanbach. And if you wanted to give just a brief synopsis of your discussion, that would be fine by me. Who better to do it?
That's known as a pass-off.
That's known as a pass-off. Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Kiley.
Welcome.
As we noted that day, the rental registration ordinance is something that's been in place for 10 years or more, and it's maybe not been as enforced as much as it could have been, and so we're looking at ways to enforce it better and to provide a little more protection for not only neighbors, but for the renters themselves and for the landlords. And so we had, I thought, a healthy discussion, and I know that there are some people that didn't like some of the things we talked about, and there were people that were really happy about some of the things we talked about, and now we're going back to, not the drawing board, but back to do some tweaking, and we'll be back to the committee at some point in the next couple months. So
Super. Thank you.
And once those edits and tweaking are completed, they will be coming back to the Land Use Committee again before coming to full City Council.
Yeah, I sat in on that. It was interesting. There were, on both sides.
Right,
feelings on both sides.
Yeah, I've learned so much in the last year. Just, we started with a really massive group of people talking about it, and I've talked to so many neighbors about it and that kind of thing, and it's just fascinating. But yeah, just the mix that day too was really great. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Open discussion. Councilor Staley.
I have 2 items I wanted to talk about. First of all, it's spring, as you mentioned, Council Chair Rolfing, and I brought a bouquet of flowers from my boulevard garden right up here on the stand, and I want to encourage people that now is the time to start digging, and you can plant most anything in your boulevard as long as it doesn't exceed 36 inches and doesn't have any thorns on it and not too many rocks. So wanted to bring that up. And then also I wanted to say that I went to the redistricting committee meeting today at noon, and I've also been attending the annexation task force meetings, where we have some really brave volunteer citizens serving on these boards. It's wonderful. But one thing these 2 boards have in common, these 2 groups, is that they are videotaped. Citizens being videotaped. And I'm hoping that down the road, this council group of legislators will once again consider videotaping the other groups that we have in our community, like the Park Board, the REMSA Board, for the sake of transparency and openness for our citizens. So bravo to those people who are serving in those capacities and allowing themselves to be broadcast to the public. So that's all I have to say.
Any other open discussion? Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to mention a citizen and thank a department head at the same time. Last week, our city had a visit from a venture capitalist named Paul Singh, and spent the entire week in our community. In fact, Director Ketchum and Slater Barr from the Development Foundation led a tour in a group, I believe there was probably 12 or 15 people who got a chance to see a lot of the projects that are going on. Thank you for being here. I wanted to make sure I said thank you, Director. But it was really a great experience. Mr. Singh, who is the venture capitalist, was able to visit a lot of businesses as well in town, talk about entrepreneurship, investing in Sioux Falls, and some of the really great things that we have happening in our community. And at the same time, look at some startup businesses and be able to fund them as well. So, but it was interesting to get his impression of someone who'd never been to Sioux Falls before, get a chance to tour the community, look at our business community, and had nothing but positive things to say about our community. It was probably because he was paid to be here as well, so that helps as part of it as well. But no, seriously, I think he was impressed by our community, and I think in the next couple of weeks we'll see some businesses that his company will fund and help grow and make Sioux Falls a better place. So most importantly, thank you to Mr. Bushy for taking the initiative to bring Mr. Singh to our community, and Director Ketchum and Mr. Barr at the Development Foundation again. I think it was a good experience for our community, and it's the type of community that we have, that people are willing to step out. I know that Mr. Bushy, his business is growing and isn't looking for venture capital, but he's interested in making Sioux Falls a better place like a lot of us are. So, thank you.
Thank you. Along those same lines, if I could just very quickly, we all got a notice that I think Friday they're making a big announcement out at Foundation Park. And so I think it's our first person coming in there. So anyone who wants to come out, Darren, what time is it, Director? 11 a.m. At the Foundation, downtown. Okay, at the Foundation offices. So feel free to come down and listen to what that is. I think it's a big deal to get the first one going on there, and that's going to just spiral. So, okay, let's move on then. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Councilor Colley.
I just wanted to mention that, and I don't want this to be about me. I'm going somewhere with this. But last Friday, I did have a chance to attend Arbor Day celebration at the Arboretum, and there were fifth graders from Terry Redland Elementary School there planting a tree in the honor of one of their classmates who had passed away. And this morning, I had the opportunity to attend another event, this time at John Harris Elementary School, third graders presenting their projects for what's called Genius Hour. And actually a young lady who has presented before the City Council before on a topic that'll be on this evening's agenda, little Miss Hannah Nesdal had invited me to attend that event, and she did another presentation on smoking, and it was extremely well done. PowerPoints, integrated with video in third grade.
Third grade.
But my point is, I mean, obviously a lot of these individuals have good support from home, but what they all have in common are teachers in their lives. And today is Teacher Appreciation Day, and I thought it was a good time to remind individuals of this day for teachers. And we've all had teachers in our lives that have made where we're at possible. And so just keep that in mind. And if you still have the opportunity today or tomorrow or the next day, thank a teacher for their service to their community.
Also reminds me that those of us that have grandchildren need to keep them close to us so that they can do all the programming of our VCRs or whatever it is that we're getting on. VCR, what's a VCR? Well, that gives you an idea why we need to keep them around so they can do our phones and things like that, yeah.
With your record player and your 8-track?
Cassette. Okay, let's move on. Discovery District. Rich, are you ready to go? Mr. Nazer?
Thank you, City Council, for the opportunity to update you on the Discovery District, and I'll do this as quick as I can so you can get on to the rest of your agenda, but also please feel free to stop me and ask me questions if there's something I skip over. And let's see if I can run the technology here, if I need my kids to do this for me. This is a vision of the whole 252 acres out at the USD Discovery District, including University Center. And our mission really is to foster economic development by creating a location where researchers and students and businesses and entrepreneurs interact, and we grow research capacity, we grow new companies through entrepreneurship and commercialization. And the Discovery District's role as a nonprofit is actually to also facilitate the construction of infrastructure and facilities out at the Discovery District. And the USD Discovery District is a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation. Has a separate board of directors of 9 voting members, of which the president of USD is the chairman. And I always want to stress, I think it's pretty amazing that we've got the president of the flagship liberal arts university, which is located 50 miles from here, making his investment in Sioux Falls and in economic development. And the Board of Regents' big contribution to this, of course, is that they are leasing us the 80 acres of land for $1 a year for 99 years, which is a very significant contribution to allow us to proceed and do this. But this is really all about economic development and trying to create high-wage, high-skilled job opportunities to keep our grandchildren and our children here, at least give them the choice of staying. So we think it's going to take us 25 years to build about 26 buildings. You can see the construction value there, the significant tax impact it'll have as far as sales and excise tax during construction, but also ongoing property tax value. The land won't be taxed, but the buildings will be privately developed, privately managed, and those will be taxed, all those improvements. And we anticipate 2,800 new jobs out in the district. And one of our key focus areas is bioscience. We just completed a bioscience strategy that we are sharing with the Development Foundation and sharing with GOED, so we're not out there doing this by ourselves. We're leveraging the other partners in economic development in South Dakota. This is the original, or the initial 80 acres that will be part of the Discovery District. I like to use the term gerrymandered. But the concept was from our master planners was to, again, wrap this development around the assets at University Center, and not only to leverage off of those, but we could facilitate, assuming they have future growth, construction of space for them as they grow in Sioux Falls over time. Again, just want to highlight, and then I'll get to updates. This is going to be a mixed-use urban environment. We're the second research park in South Dakota, but we're really the first innovation live, work, play community that's been attempted in the state of South Dakota. And I think you'll see Rapid City announcing a similar type development sometime this year, early next year. So we're actually getting ready to build our first set of streets, and it'll be a downtown type environment with multi-story buildings and wide pedestrian walkways. This I won't go into, but just shows it's mixed use. There'll be lots of space in the Discovery District for science and technology activities, but we also have space for commercial, hospitality, and classrooms. So it will be a mixed use environment and not solely research and education. Just some recent activity. Start off with last year. Thank you, City Council, for your support and the $150,000 in operating funding for the district. We also were able to secure, for the first time, the state of South Dakota investing ongoing dollars in the Discovery District through the Board of Regents. We secured a $755,000 EDA matching grant in partnership with community development in the City of Sioux Falls. That'll be used for our first streets that I'll talk about in a minute. And those streets will be dedicated to the city upon completion. And we went through the city planning and zoning process, and in 2016 got all of our construction documents done. And I can't say enough about the city staff, engineering, planning, zoning, and their help on this and making this a very smooth process. We do partner with the Research Park at SDSU, so we held our third, in 2017, did our third annual Research Park Day at the legislature. That's how we've been able to secure support from the legislature and the governor for these efforts, is by making them not competitive with other communities, but actually partnering on our strategies to recruit companies and on our development. We awarded our bid and awarded our construction this spring, and the legislature did maintain their funding this year, which will start for their fiscal year in July. So starting construction Thursday out at the Discovery District. We'll be building 2,822 linear feet of streets and public utilities. The whole project cost we had estimated at $1.65 million. The actual construction cost, taking out engineering and other costs, is about $1.2 million. And the reason that's important is that the EDA grant is a matching grant, so we're only able today to access $600,000 of that. for the match. So we're actively seeking opportunities to do some additional work out there to leverage those other federal dollars to maximize that. And we have a groundbreaking ceremony. The invitation will be going out this week, but 10:30 on May 18th, we'll be celebrating the groundbreaking for the Discovery District. And I'll just highlight the two names of the streets are
Rolfing and.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Rolf-
thought you were-
well, we are for sale. Sponsorships, investments. But they're actually named after, the first one is North Francis Avenue. It was named after a woman who was on the USD Medical School faculty. And when she left, she went to the FDA, and she stopped famotidine from coming on the market in the United States, which caused all kinds of birth defects over in Europe, and actually received a national recognition for that and her efforts. I think she was one of 5 physicians at the time at the FDA. The other one, we wanted to name Lawrence after the two Lawrence brothers, the one who is our only Nobel laureate or Nobel Prize winner for science for inventing the cyclotron, a Canton native, and the other one is the father of nuclear medicine. Lawrence was taken, so we named it Nobel Street. But the reason we did this, and you'll see this throughout our thinking, is it's about people who had a significant impact not only in South Dakota but outside of South Dakota, and those are the types of opportunities and aspirational things that we want to have happen at the Discovery District. We are, and I'll talk a little bit more about our process, but we are anticipating our first building will be a multi-tenant shared research facility and scale-up building, 25,000 square feet, plus or minus, depending on the number of private occupants, and around $8 million. And right now we're actively talking to several companies about potentially executing letters of intent to move in to the first building. That'll be private developed, and again would be on the tax rolls. We're actively working also on getting the Gear Center expanded. That is the building attached to the main classroom out at University Center. Today it houses USD's biomedical engineering program, which is actually headquartered in Sioux Falls. One of the neat things about that program is it's a master's and PhD program, and all the faculty members are matched up with practicing physicians, helping them address real-world issues and develop new products that could be commercialized. So whether that's a new type of stent or a new type of tissue scaffolding or those sorts of things, so very applied. And the first floor actually houses Alumend, which is a company that came out of a university research center that's going to be making an announcement next week, Wednesday, I believe, about progress. But we look to expand that building. This would be a university-owned building, but to have more incubation space and to facilitate the expansion of USD's biomedical engineering program, which is growing in Sioux Falls. Our development process, we have an RFQ that we sent out March 20th. We've had significant interest in that. Multiple developers, both locally and nationally, have expressed interest, and we're going through a selection process and hope to have a developer selected by the end of the month and make an announcement of who we'll be working with on one or more of our first research facilities. So that could be that multi-tenant building, but it also could be a unique public-private partnership to get the Gear Center expanded with some sort of hand back after 30 years, where it'd be privately developed, leased back to the university system potentially, and then turned over to the universities. And then we had hospitality in our master plan. We have an RFP that was out. We had good interest in that as well, and are now going through the selection process for a developer for our first hotel facility out in the Discovery District. And multiples of the companies that we've talked to deal with people all over the country and all over the world, and the optimal situation for them is to have those clients come stay near them for 2 or 3 days or a week while they're collaborating with the researchers and the companies in the Discovery District. And so we look at this as a support activity about, I think we call it as 9 or 10% of the total development in the Discovery District. Next steps for us. A lot of what we've been doing is really creating the documents to allow us to operate and execute. So this year we'll be finishing our covenants, conditions, and restrictions, which will be approved by the Board of Regents in June, hopefully. Our use criteria and design guidelines are drafted and ready for approval, but we're getting ready to sublease land. And our owners, we'll have an owners association, so the private companies that invest will have a say in how we operate and manage the shared space. So we look to select our developers and execute agreements, and we're already starting to look to, we talked about, this is 2,800 linear feet of road that we're building. There's about 11,000 called out in the entire district. We're building the most expensive part. This is our type 1 streets, our urban environment. But so we're working on what are our models for not only helping finance facilities and make sure those come together, but how do we build, how do we have the ability to build the future infrastructure? And last, and maybe what you care about the most, is what are the dollars that are being used and where are they going? So we have operating funding, including the city, Forward Sioux Falls, USD, which is not a state appropriated, it's not state appropriated funding, it's grant and direct dollars, but a total of $550,000 for 2017. Our fiscal year is calendar year like the city. We have development capital available through grants, through general fund appropriation, through Forward Sioux Falls, right now of about $1.83 million, so about $2.383 million today. Operating management, and a lot of that is going to consultants and attorneys for agreements, things of that nature. Staff time to develop the and operate the district. But 5.43 on the operating, we anticipate 1.7 million in construction related expenses this year. So we really are looking to net out about $113,000, which isn't a lot when you look forward. We do 5-year rolling budgets, and we want to keep that number. That number will bounce around between $100,000 and $300,000. The difference between Zeal, the other place that I run, that Councilor Starr was at for part of the pulsing event, is everything out there was in the single thousands of dollars. Everything with development, I've learned, is tens and multiple tens of $1,000s for every change. So, but we're excited about what will happen this year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Nazer? Mr. Starr, Councilor Starr.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for hosting the event last night. I neglected to mention you as well. I was looking this direction and as I was scribbling my notes, but it was a great event. And what was the most interesting part about that event, other than you having to make an extra run for everyone to make sure that the networking continued, is the things that happened outside of the seminar that Mr. Singh did, to a chance to get the community together to foster some of those relationships, start the talk of deals and that collaboration that happens among the community. So thank you for everything the Zeal Center does. How long do you have to access the additional federal funds? Is this a multi-year opportunity?
Yes. So the grant was awarded in 2016, and I believe we have 3 to 5 years to expend those dollars. We would anticipate doing it sooner than that, assuming that the EDA would agree to the amended scope of the project.
Good. Maybe one more, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about the operational funds that the city provided and how important they are to what you're doing. Obviously, you couldn't, if you didn't have the staff and the time, this process wouldn't move forward. And looking at your budget, like you said, it is pretty tight to keep everything going, but it takes staff to make these type of deals work. So give us a little feedback of how important that is to what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, to be blunt, I don't think we'd be at this stage today if we did not have those dollars, because not only are they important, and we basically have the capacity today to stand up the park and start marketing it and do the development, but those dollars are key to us for getting the continued match from the state of South Dakota also, I think. We're hopeful that in the future the state will consider doing a one-to-one match with the city and with the other partners. But it was we were pretty excited to get them on board for the first time, and Councilor Erickson was there when the first $1 million was put in for infrastructure, and that was something that I think the recurring question was, what does the community put in, and not just the city, but Forward Sioux Falls and others. So it's critical for us today. Over time, we hope that land lease revenue will help cover ongoing operations. But at this stage of development, we want to earmark those for future infrastructure development. We've got another, 8,000 roughly linear feet of road to build, and so any land lease revenue right now, we think will probably go towards that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Mr. Nazer. It's always interesting to see what you guys are up to. I think the first thing that we need to do, and you alluded to it, though, is the idea that this is in Sioux Falls. This is not in Vermilion, where it might be more appropriate to be in Sioux Falls. I think I know that we're grateful that it's here, and it's valuable to our economy. I guess my basic question is really basic. It's that idea of you're going to build, more than a half a mile of streets.
Yep.
Who owns those streets then?
The city will own them at the end. The reason the city is a co-applicant on the grant is because they will be the final owner of those streets. So we will dedicate those streets to the city. The city will maintain the streets and do the snow removal, and we're actually going to be executing an agreement because they're going to be a downtown type street and there's no place to push the snow. So we're working out a management agreement where we'll be responsible for making sure the city doesn't bear the cost of trucking snow out. But they will be city streets, and that's the plan for all of the streets out in the Discovery District at this time.
So then they also meet city standards and city engineering rules and all of those kinds of
Yes.
things. So
Yep.
that, okay, good, thank you.
Counselor Staley?
I have two questions. Is the Board of Regents involved with this facility at all?
With the development of the Discovery District, they are the sole member of the 501c3 corporation. So their role is they approve our Board of Directors every year and hold an annual meeting. So the role of the Board of Regents is they approve our Board of Directors, they have the land lease, they approved our master lease for us and provide us that, and they'll approve the covenants, conditions, and restrictions. But on a day-to-day basis, the operations of the district don't flow back up to the Board of Regents. We basically, as long as we're following our permitted use criteria and everything, the board of the Discovery District, which does include Regent Sutton, the executive director of the Board of Regents, and President Abbott, and then other community leaders, has oversight over that. So it doesn't pass up to them beyond appointing the board and being the sole member of the corporation.
So they have no input into salaries?
No.
Okay, and then the second question is, you were talking about having some hotel
Yep.
possibilities. Have you thought about multi-housing for apartments?
Absolutely. We want this to be a live, work, play environment. So certainly on buildings where we do not have, that aren't laboratory buildings, so some of the buildings might be office space and other amenities, we'd be very interested in third or fourth floors having apartments on them. Can't put apartments probably on top of lab buildings with exhaust and things, but absolutely we'd love to do that. Another trend actually is to have multi-generational housing within this type of development.
But you wouldn't have dorm room type of housing?
It wouldn't be technically dorm rooms, no. They would be apartments.
And would they be possibly open to the public, or would it just be closed into the people involved?
No, it
with
would, there would, I don't believe, be any types of restrictions on that. The concept of a district versus a campus or a traditional research park is that you want it very integrated into the broader community. So you want activities there, including housing, including entertainment, other types of activities that the rest of the community participates in. So I don't foresee that there would be exclusions of who could lease apartments. You would certainly think it would be people engaged with the district or engaged at University Center, but I don't think that would be a requirement because they would be privately developed, privately owned,
So you've got a huge opportunity for lots of workforce housing
yes.
on your property.
I believe so.
Thank you, great.
We call out a certain, I have to look at the percentage up there, it's only about 10% of the development right now.
Thank you.
So you're going to get hopefully some restaurants and theaters and different things like that up there that'll be...
Absolutely. We see things like restaurants probably coming a little bit at a later stage or will have to be somehow facilitated or enabled by the Discovery District early on. That northwest part of town, because of the population density today, is going to be a little bit of a challenge. But as an example, we anticipate that all of our buildings that are built on this main street, this Nobel Street and on Francis, will have storefront on them. So even while they may be office or other activities today, in the future, when we have more density, they could be converted to something more like our downtown environment. So,
Councilor Erickson?
Thank you. Just as Mr. Nazer spoke, in the legislature, the $1 million seed money, if you will, was given. And I will share with the council, I know I've shared this before, but since we have so many newer people, it was really a challenge to get that money from the legislature without matching dollars. And so we were compared to Brookings. What does Brookings do? What does the city of Brookings do? And so that was a huge part of the conversation. And so it was kind of this, it's coming, we hope to have this done. And there was some change. And then last year we made it a priority as well. And so I share that with the hope that, not just, it's a great thing to do and fund and it's forward thinking, But if we don't do it, we also jeopardize losing those state funds as well. And so it's great having Director Ketchum here as well, great timing as well. And so I just share my support and hope that those conversations are taking place now for it to continue. And so it's not just a $150,000 investment, but we're potentially losing those state dollars if it's not a priority from this council. So I hope those conversations are taking place. I don't know if they are or not, but I hope that we get to that point. So thank you very much. Thanks for
mention that Director Ketchum is on our board.
Perfect. That's a
So
great
we make
opportunity.
sure he knows what we're doing. And everyone. We want to be very open. Our stakeholders, our board members represent the breadth of our stakeholders, and we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the direction we're going.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, we're fully in support. Get it done in the next year, okay?
I'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank
you very much. Next on the agenda is mixed-use parking ramp, Director Ketchum, and Matt Nelson with Public, Brenda O'Neill with Economic Development.
Good afternoon, Council. Darren Ketchum with the Community Development Office. I just wanted to make sure that we got in front of you again. I think it's been a little over a month since we last talked about the public parking ramp proposal that we'll be bringing forward in the future. Give you an update of the status. Matt Nelson will go through that presentation. We'd like to make sure that you have an opportunity to pose any questions or input to this process. I know we've received various questions kind of in between our last presentation, and those are very helpful for us as we kind of shape this as it moves forward and to make sure that we're delivering a product that adds value to Sioux Falls. So with that said, Matt Nelson will start with the presentation, and myself and Brent are here too should you have any questions.
Matt Nelson, Public Parking Facilities Manager. So like Director Ketchum said, it's been approximately 8 weeks since the last time we came in here to talk about this project, and just want to touch on our past milestones that we've gone through to get to this point. So in 2007 and in 2014, we did conduct a demand and site analysis on this project. The results of that study both times were very similar in location and need for downtown. And since the 2007 study, we kind of went through an economic downturn in 2008. We removed the river ramp in 2012, and we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the last couple of years downtown. This project's been in the CIP book for about 10 years in different amounts throughout those years, but it's been a project we've been working on for a long time with the city and in public parking. In 2016, we put out an RFQ, a request for qualifications for our developer. In August, we put out our construction manager at risk announcement, looking for a construction manager. And September of 2016 is when the budget was approved for planning, which was approximately $2.7 million that was left in the budget for planning. We've spent of that 2.7 approximately $350,000 to $400,000 in our planning process right now. So we haven't spent nearly all of it, but we've spent a good portion to get to where we're going. In February, we announced our developer, which was Legacy. And that brings us to March, where the contract was approved, and the architectural contract put us into schematic phase. And we've said the schematic phase is typically a 10 to 12 week process. We're at about 8 weeks right now, so we're coming towards the end of that process. And that's what we want to come here and tell you what we're doing and where we're at right now. So where are we and what are we doing? Well, you can see we're working on our schematic design and finalizing pricing to make sure we can bring you a good product. And these are all of the people that are working on this final concept together. So our architects are really responsible for the overall design of the product, the structural portion to make sure it's safe and constructed correctly, and then they've also got the aesthetic portion, make sure it mixes well with our downtown environment. Our construction manager at risk is responsible for making sure we're pricing it correctly, recommending good products and facades that bring us good value for the product that we want. And obviously public parking, we're actively involved. We want to make sure we're balancing the needs and wants of the city, and those needs and wants we've talked about several times. That's a parking ramp that's 400 to 650 parking spots. We want to maximize our efficiency. We really want to blend with the area, and we want to bring in a private aspect to that development and have that facility be walkable, like our Phillips Avenue downtown. We want to be able to tie into that well. We've got our consultants on board, and they've been working as our experts in parking. They really maximize the efficiency flow, make sure we're meeting our level of service requirements in our ramp. We're shooting for a top quality ramp that really meets the needs of the people using it. And they are also responsible for designing all of the equipment, helping us select systems that will work correctly, and then make recommendations now on the front end to reduce our repair and maintenance cost in the long term. And then finally, our private partner legacy. They are there just to help us to make sure our facilities and their facilities flow well together. So what can we share at this point, and what do we know at this point in the design? Well, we know we're going to have a 7-story facility is what we're planning on. It's going to be approximately 85 feet tall, and we're truly maximizing that site. As you look through downtown and you try to select sites that are available, and you really need about 240 feet by at least 120 feet. This is approximately 180 by 240 feet long, so we are truly maximizing every square foot of that site to get the most out of it possible. It'll be 4 levels of parking, and that'll be on the bottom portion of the development, and one of those levels will be an underground level. The decks, for the most part, will be flat. That question's come up in the past, so to match up with some of the development, they will be flat decks, but of course we have to have ramps to move the cars up and down. It'll be approximately 520 parking stalls. This is a question that's come up several times. What size are we looking at? We're looking at over 500. It's still in schematic, so there's some spots that may get eliminated or added as we go through design, but that's a very good number that we're using to plan on now. There'll be 3 levels of private development on top. We still anticipate those being anything from retail, hotel, apartments, condos. It could be any of those things at this point. And then on the bottom level, that's where the walkability comes in. Approximately a third of the ground level development will be retail development on street level. So with that number, this is kind of one of the slides where how does that impact our system? We want to show what does it mean to downtown? When do we need to build another ramp? And if you look at the red line, that's our system staying static. If we didn't add a facility, that's where we would be. We're going to cap out at about 105%. We're not going to be able to go much above that just because of operations and maximizing efficiency. The blue line represents what it will look like as we build a new facility. You'll see it'll go up slightly, but as we open that new facility, it'll take us down to approximately 86% occupied system-wide when we open, and it'll slowly creep up over the years, about 1% a year system-wide. So what does that mean? It means we have anywhere from approximately 350 to 400-ish spaces available. And we've said, how long will this last us? Based on that type of growth, we're looking at 10, maybe 12 years before we really need to start looking at another facility, or we should be building another facility. And that's pretty consistent with the historical information we provided before. If we looked at all the ramps we've built and we've added a significant amount of parking, that averaged every 7 years we added a significant amount of parking to downtown. This is probably twice the size of some of those developments we added, so it would be in line with what we've done in the past. So what you don't see in this line, because these are just numbers, are the operational impacts of not building a new ramp. So as you look at that red line, there's no growth. So we cannot add any new major tenants downtown if they don't have parking in their facility. Has a huge impact negatively for economic development downtown. And then it also starts to impact the average citizen. So what we would look at is some of the places we take hourly customers, we start to reduce those. It makes it much harder to find parking. So if you want to come downtown to the pavilion or enjoy a meal, especially around lunchtime or during peak hours, it's going to be even more difficult to find parking. So that's the negative impact that it has. So what's next? We're obviously in schematic design at this point. We're looking at bringing the budget amendments and other agreements forward in June. That would be in line with that 10 to 12 weeks for schematic design. So we're on track to do that, and we're on track to complete the rest of our development with that. So in fall, our goal is to break ground on this development, and then for 2017, and then in 2018 in fall, the private development would break ground. At the same time, or right around that same time, the public parking would open up to the general public, and then approximately a year later, the private development would open up in fall of 2019. So what takes council action going forward? These are the big things that you would see in June. It's really the private development agreements. The full agreements will be available for review, and they will need council approval. There will be several easements and right-of-way approvals that will be required, and the big one will be the bond ordinance and the costing that will come with that and the CIP amendment. We'll also have a CMAR contract at that time. As we work through this project, our goal is certainly to do this ramp correctly. We've seen from some of our past facilities where some of the designs were maybe not the best or most conducive to parking, but we certainly want to take our time and do this right and not fast. And ideally, we'd be maybe a couple weeks ahead, but once again, right, not fast is our goal in here. And we've been doing this for 3 years, and I think we're getting close, so approximately 4 weeks to go. This time, we would open it up for general questions.
Other questions for Mr. Ketchum? You have something, Counselor?
Either way.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Counselor Urtenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I appreciate it. I want to look just briefly at occupancy and the overbooking right now. One of the biggest complaints that I get from citizens is that idea that I paid for a parking spot and I can't park there because it is overbooked. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it, but it's kind of like the airlines, you know, we book more seats than we have, right? Which is fine, and that's how it works, right? When we get to this point, when this unit is constructed, we're going to end up having then way more vacancies than what we have now. Can you talk about how will those vacancies be spaced out? Will they, is there some sort of system, or will they only be in that lot, in the new lot, or what's the strategy for figuring out where people are going to park, I guess is what I'm asking. Obviously, I don't work downtown, and I don't know how this functions.
So running the numbers, we kind of know where people want to park. Obviously, they want to park close to where they work. The new facility will be very close to full within the first year, I would say. We'll probably be at 90% at that facility, but that's not because it's all new customers. It's customers moving through our system. So right now, 8th and Dakota is full, but a lot of those customers would prefer to park at 10th and Phillips. So as they shift around, what it'll look like, we'll still continue to see Block 11 being very close to full, 90% to 100% lease occupancy. The new ramp, 90 to 100% lease occupancy. We'll see the opening of more parking come at First Avenue ramp, which is near the bus depot. That'll put us approximately 78% occupied there. So we'll open up a large amount of vacancy there is what we anticipate. And 8th and Dakota. So 8th and Dakota now, which is at 105%, and the next year it's going to be at 115%. It's going to drop back down to 70%, 75% in that ballpark, which is great because we know we have a demand up there from the county, our new building. There's a lot of vacant land in the area. So some of that planning is to help facilitate future growth in the outlying areas. Also, the pavilion ramp will probably drop down to about 70%. So it's really going to open up parking throughout our entire system.
So then the corollary to that then is the idea of, you know, there's going to be, 300 open spaces or something like that, mm-hmm. right? When this ramp goes online, what happens if we get another CNA surety or an organization like that? Maybe next to the new city building there will be some massive something come in that faces Minnesota Avenue. Do we then come in as a city and talk about moving our ramp projects up faster, or how might that work, do you think?
Absolutely. We'd be certainly willing to do that. So like 8th and Dakota, for example, we can add a level. We've already done the studies on that, 82 spots. It was 3 years ago. Pricing was $2.5 million for those. So there's probably some inflation on that, but we're looking at those options. The other part of that is those buildings would provide some of their own parking. So typically we don't have a one-for-one demand for new buildings built. So typically they're building their own parking, and then we're getting the overflow from that with newer facilities. Some of the demand we're meeting now is from some of our historic buildings that are 20, 30, 40 years old, and they cannot add parking to their site because it's just not feasible to put a parking garage on Phillips Avenue on your historic building.
Right. And I guess my questions come basically as a council member. I've been watching this process for so long. It takes a long time for us to get to that point where we're going to build another parking ramp. You know, we did the CNA building in, you know, it's a joint whatever, but I'm just concerned that we be ready, that we be flexible in that idea that, yeah, we think 10 to 12 years right now, but it might be 4 that we need to do another one. That's my concern as a council member and representing people that live and work downtown. They need parking. And if something big comes in, we got to be ready to move, So that's thank you.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. I'd like to kind of hit on the point that you had made that with our current capacity at what it is, there just isn't any room for growth in our downtown area. We can't bring in new businesses. The downtown area just simply can't grow. So there's a demonstrated need. With this design, not only will we gain 520 parking stalls, but we also have 3 levels of private development above the ramp structure, which is bringing additional money into the community, additional people into the community, regardless of how those levels will be occupied. And then we have approximately a third of the first floor is anticipated to be retail, so additional ability to employ individuals who are then in turn going to be purchasing materials within this community and homes within this community and other people coming in and purchasing supplies and items, so increasing tax revenue. And this really is, and I've seen this type of mixed-use parking in other locales, so it's more than just dressing up a parking ramp. It's actually contributing much more back to your community because, and my question is then, have you estimated the economic return to the community versus just a stand-alone ramp? The advantages of this versus simply a stand-alone ramp? Because the stand-alone ramp is going to occupy space that otherwise could be used for retail. So now that's now gone for that purpose. And so all of the things that I mentioned previously aren't possible. And with this, it seems like the best of both worlds. Has there been an estimate?
No, we have not dug into it. Brent, have you?
Very good question, Counselor. One of the things that we look at, and we can provide you additional detail on that, obviously a standalone ramp owned by the city generates only dollars for that enterprise fund. It doesn't generate property tax revenue for the school district, property tax revenue for the county, property tax revenue for the city. So when we look at this, once we get a little more definitive on the dollar amount and the investment of the private partner, we can tell you, I would say, a more reliable number. But certainly we expect this, just in property taxes alone, to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars annually that will be divided up amongst those 3 parties. Certainly the retail aspect will provide additional amenities in downtown, and we can get you some detail in terms of what we think that'll generate. Some of the things that we'll look at, though, is some of those will simply be shifting dollars around downtown. Some of those may be new dollars, but those are things we'll take into consideration. But at a very minimum, we expect the private development to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in property tax revenue on an annual basis.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilor Staley.
Well, I guess I'm going to be the sad Sally here, but I'm very concerned about protecting the taxpayers in this situation. I've said it publicly. I'm going to say it again now. And I think this, being a new council member, I wasn't involved with the last 10 years or 4 years or whatever you've been talking about this. I think we need to deal with now. We are facing some difficult decisions in our community, and I'm not going to do anything to put that second penny in peril. And you're talking about using that as collateral on this facility. We're talking about having it being supported by user fees, and then now we're talking about doing something where we're going to bring in extra property tax revenue. I don't think this is a time to be gambling on what we may be seeing in the future. We were at a chamber event when Director Cooper said he was talking about 400 spaces. You're talking about 500 spaces, whatever it is, but I know that there is 130 spaces we're going to lose that are already there, and Norm Drake told us that he's going to probably be taking 150 spaces for his legacy company, which I'll get to in a minute. So we're talking about $18 million for maybe an extra 200 spaces. Let's say it's an extra 300 spaces. I'm not opposed to adding parking for our people downtown, but I want to do it with common sense, and I don't want to put us in any peril. I do think there are some legalities that need to be discussed, and perhaps we need to do that in executive session. But there are things coming down the road, and we don't have all the answers yet. I'm not going to name names, but I think we need to have answers on the council. I also have wanted to know who we're getting married to here, who we're putting the taxpayers in bed with, as far as legacy development. I've asked 2 times, and you won't say who the investors are. I'm going to say now, let's have an executive session and show us privately who the investors are. If there's nothing to hide, then we should be on the up and up. But our taxpayers are going to be married together with these people, and we need to do due diligence to stand for this, for what's right. I do believe it hasn't been done before. $18 million is a lot of money. So I'm really very uncomfortable with this. We are moving very quickly with it, and we've spent $350,000 to $400,000 already. I've heard this argument was used when we had the administration building last year, that we'd spent so much time and money we can't put the brakes on now. And I just got into the game here with the council, so I'm going to be saying, let's back off, let's look at other options. I don't think this is the right thing for our community right now.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. Has when the second penny is used as collateral, has it ever been used? And if you're not the person to ask, you can send an email and we can discuss it next week too. I just am curious if and when it's ever been used as collateral, if it's ever been used.
When it was secondary collateral?
Yep. Yeah. When the second penny was used as collateral, has it ever been used?
We can have Director Turback from the Finance Department.
I don't believe it has, but I just
It's my recollection that the city's never been put in a position to have to use that, but we can confirm with Director Turback.
I had asked that question at a previous meeting here just in the last few months, and I was told that it has not been used.
That's my understanding as well, but I just wanted to make sure that was discussed.
That's my understanding, but we will certainly work with Director Turback.
And if
to
I can
confirm in
continue.
writing again.
You have one more?
Okay, 2 more.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Just kidding. I just wanted to respond to the losing of parking spaces. Are these folks, whoever it is, if it's Legacy or other tenants, will they have to pay for the parking spots?
Councilor, all of these will be sold at market rate, which is, I anticipate we have several neighbors in that surrounding area that operate office space that certainly will look to fill that up as soon as possible. But they will pay for every penny of it. Nobody gets a special rate.
Okay, so technically we're not losing any spots. They're paid, committed spots. We have paid parking spots.
Yeah, I look at it.
Built into this.
We look at this as a business, and we're increasing our customer base on day one. This is a good thing for us to make sure that as we make financial commitments, certainly, Councilor, this is a huge financial commitment for our system and for our community. And to have that financial strength and to have that customer base built up is very important to maintaining our ability to pay our debt service. Not to mention that we'll also maintain a minimum of $1 million in the enterprise fund, which will allow us to weather a significant storm or downturn in the economy.
And then my last question, if I can.
Yes.
Are any of them, I'm not interested in an investor list. That's not my thing. But I just want to hear again, are there any investors in any of this that are city employees?
No, there are no city employees that are investors in this project. There are no city employee spouses. There are no elected officials, or there are no elected official spouses that are investors in this project. And as a matter of our process, we've had conflicts of interest, that you would have to disclose those items. And Legacy Developments is committed to upholding that, and will be part of their written contract. And I don't know if Attorney Fifley has anything to add, but it is against the city's ordinance, the code of ethics. I mean, it is not legal for me or any of you or your spouses to be investors in this, and Legacy will not allow it anyway.
Thank you. That was my understanding as well, but if Attorney Fifley could just share any of his legalese that he would like to share with us.
Thank you, Counselor. If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Counselor Erickson, yes. Director Ketchum spoke correctly. The contract documents that you will approve will state unequivocally that any city officials, city employees, or their spouses are not having any financial interest in the project. And they have to warrant and represent that to the city. Under South Dakota state statute, there's also a provision that says if a city official has a financial interest in that project through this contract, that the whole project could be void ab initio. The way that means that it's void from the start. The way these projects work is there's a debt financing component and an equity financing component. On the debt side, you're essentially going to a bank saying, these are our investors, assuming I'm a private company. This is the list of my investors' bank. The bank checks all those out. Our contract documents will spell out clearly, this is against our charter, this is against city ordinances and state law to have any city elected officials, city employees, or their spouses. I can assure you I've been through the process on behalf of clients and myself on projects. The bank makes you list absolutely everything you've ever done, everything you are, and you have to pledge your firstborn in terms of what's going on. No bank is going to give out debt financing if a city employee or their spouse appears on that list, nor a city elected official. The equity side is, again, the investor list. We went through this where Councilor Jameson, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to give a full explanation. In February of 2014, Councilor Jameson wanted to amend the TIF ordinance for the City of Sioux Falls, requiring that a list of investors be disclosed by any private company involved in TIF financing. And that would have included both city elected officials as well as spouses. I work with Councilor Jameson, and we jointly hired an attorney here in Sioux Falls by the name of Chris Lent, and he spoke to the City Council, I believe it was March of 2014, and this was all very public, and you can go back and watch the video. Attorney Lent had been the Director of Securities for the state of New Hampshire before he came back to South Dakota to practice law with the Woods Fuller firm. And Attorney Lent said, for various reasons under federal and state securities laws, he cautioned against requiring that list of disclosures on the witness list to the city, because every time that list could come out, it could be deemed a solicitation for investment, and Attorney Lent said, I wouldn't recommend it. And this was a former Director of Securities for another state. He also indicated that it would hamper and really crimp any private investment. Again, with our contract documents, and you will see them as you approve them, you will clearly see that they have to warrant and represent as a private company that any city elected officials, any city employees, or their spouses are not going to be involved in this project in a financial manner.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my understanding as well, but I wanted to hear it from you on the record, so to speak, so that we could all hear the same information at the exact same time. So thank you for answering my questions.
Councilor Staley again?
Darren, do you know who the investors are?
No, I do not.
I still would like to see that list. We don't know if brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins. I just don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. If you're doing business with the city, I don't think there's any. If nothing else, let us, since we're approving the contract, I think we have a right to see that as council members in executive session. That's, and I understand you can probably say no, but at least I'm asking.
Well, Councilor,
okay?
I respect the information that you're asking for, and I do agree 100% with City Attorney Fifley that this would not be in the best interest of the City of Sioux Falls to go down that road.
I don't think the citizens will agree with that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry.
Councilor Starr.
Yes. I was going to wait because we're kind of at that point where we're guessing about things. So to really make a informed decision about what we're doing, what we've agreed to do is move forward, get the schematics, look at the numbers, and do that. So I wasn't sure today was quite the right time to do this, but we're heading down this road. Maybe Mr. Nelson, if you don't mind, one of my questions, I guess, on this project is taking a look at this ramp. It's my understanding won't pay for itself. The system will. So no matter how many spots we lease as part of this, is that correct that it's not going to, it's an entire system investment, I guess is the best way?
Yes, and that's how we've always operated the system historically, is that our system funds new facilities. So it helps us keep the cost overall down throughout our system, and it helps keep lower rates overall. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And I guess my additional question is then, there is the potential for the other ramps in the area or through the system to have to increase the rates that they have to maybe continue to pay for this investment, as well as I think Councilor Erpenbach did a nice job of pointing out that we need to plan for the future. We need to look at what we're doing and not miss an opportunity that we have. And if we are looking at 10 to 12 years to pay for the next ramp, at some point, I guess, again, I think it's premature when we don't have cost estimates yet to take a look and the forecasts of what rates are going to do by adding this ramp to the system. I think Councilor Kiley pointed out that, we're starting with 520 or somewhere in that direction. We take away 130 spots that we're already paying for that are part of the system that are on the ground now, so we're down to 390 spots. The investor with Legacy Development is looking at anywhere between 150 to 200 spots as part of the development that we don't know what it is yet. So what we're estimating, he guaranteed that he would use those spots. So we're down to probably 240 to 190 spots. That's not solving the parking problem in downtown. We're doing this, I guess I continue to look at this as an economic development project as much as it is. So basically, and I know the difference, we're providing a TIF for a developer or an investment. The city's paying for the parking spots for the investment in retail and restaurants. So we're making a large investment for a limited number of parking spots so that the investor has the opportunity to add more restaurants and retail and housing in downtown. So we really should be looking at this as an investment in an economic development project rather than an investment in a parking ramp. Because if we were looking at solving the parking issue downtown, we wouldn't be looking at spending $17 million plus on 240 to 190 parking spots if that's where we end up. And we can have that debate, and I think we will as part of this when we decide whether we move forward or not on this project. But the bottom line is we're not solving a parking problem downtown. We're providing an economic opportunity to develop downtown and continue the growth in downtown, and we should look at it that way rather than we're trying to solve a parking problem.
Sure, and I'd agree it's both. Technically, by the industry standard, when we talk net gain, it's going to be a net gain of 390 to 400 is the net gain. Now, the fact that we have other people that will use that parking, we need to look at that a little differently from a universal perspective. Across the street at First Avenue ramp, which is next to the bus depot, there's a building that when the ramp was built was renovated into apartments, Shriver's Loft. I don't know exactly how many apartments we have in there. I would estimate we have anywhere from 50 to 70 tenants in that building that are not in our lease occupancy percent. So to put that in perspective, the numbers that we've presented to here today for occupancy percent, there's probably another 2-3% that we're not even counting. Likewise, when we get into a mixed use development and we have offsetting hours of usage, we can really drive that occupancy higher. So if it's apartments, it's going to not conflict with that occupancy percentage. Same with hotels potentially. Office space, pending how it is, and density. So I think 150 to 200 is a little high, and let's wait till we get those final numbers. But we're going to be in that net of 400, and when we look at mixed use, it is going to solve a lot of our problems. I can tell you that we'll move pretty much everyone to that site that wants to park at that site, and we're going to free up a lot of parking in other areas of downtown. I have no doubt about that.
If you don't mind.
Yep.
I just have to use the numbers that Mr. Drake gave us when he met with us, and he guaranteed us that he would need 150 of those spots immediately as part of his development, and he could probably go as close to 200 if he had a chance to take a look at it. So I can only use the numbers. I mean, we're getting a little bit ahead of the game until we actually see what this the cost estimates are going to come in and how we balance what we're trying to move forward with. But I guess my point today is that this is an economic development project, which isn't necessarily bad, but as much as it is solving a parking ramp. So I guess that's my main point today.
Councilor Kiley.
Matt, whether Legacy Development used 150 spots for their development or another company in the downtown leased the 150, let's say Legacy wasn't going to use them, and one of our other downtown banks said, I need 150 spots. Is there any difference?
They're all paying customers to me. You know, we have a capacity on our market and how fast it can grow. The developers, all of the developers, as they came in and spoke to us, they have measures on how fast we can add apartments in Sioux Falls. We know there's a shortage right now, but even downtown has its own capacity of growth over a year or two. And the number of apartments, if they don't go in on the top of this facility, will likely go in somewhere else adjacent or near or in downtown. It's just a matter of where they are. So the growth is coming. It's just, you know, this just kind of makes it a little more convenient for everyone. It's all in one structure. It's a mixed use, and it's built-in customers for us.
And do we not have other entities renting space in our other ramps, as well as our lot right outside Carnegie Hall?
Absolutely, and they're all 100% lease occupied, and the night usage is typically on top of that and not counted in that occupancy.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I have one or two. Number one, on your occupancy chart here, have you ever figured what the break-even percentage is and will be if we put this new parking ramp up?
What do you mean by break even? Like
in other words, do we have to
or?
be at 75% or 80% of occupancy to make sure that we can cover our debt on all of the as an enterprise, or do we have to be at 95%?
We can run it that way. We're running the numbers now as we're still into schematics, so the final price has still got to go in there. But we've built the model, which we can share and show the occupancy and the rates. That's how we get these numbers. But yes, we can look at it from a dollar-wise or how that matches up occupancy. Either way would work.
We know what that is, what that percentage is?
I don't know offhand, but being in the range we are, we're building this to absorb a loss of a major tenant. And that major tenant would be 100 to 150 customers all at once. We'd be able to sustain that. So it would, we'll present it all at once, but yes, we are looking at all of that.
Then the contract manner at risk contract that you're going to bring to us in June, will that include a guaranteed maximum price?
We will likely not have the GMP at that point, but we will have a budget number, so we'll be locked into our budget number.
When would we have the GMP?
Typically, you know, Brent, do you know when that's going to be roughly? Before construction. And what's key in there, I would say, as we bring that contract forward and we talk about marrying an outside entity, those development agreements are our prenups. And we've got a lot of attorneys that are looking at them. We're asking you to look at them. We've got your staff that we'll present them to. So they should be rock solid. So make sure that you look at those very closely. We want a responsible decision for the city, and that's our goal. And then obviously we're sharing that responsibility with you.
Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for being here today and for the update. And I just wanted to mention, you know, I think Sioux Falls has gotten to where we are today a lot on a large part through development and vision. And it seems to me that you're moving this project forward with those ideas in mind and what it can do for our community. I don't know, I don't speak for everybody, but I too am looking out for the citizens. There certainly are questions and issues here that we're going to work through, but I believe that this project, once it comes to what the vision is, the convenience of it, the job opportunities, the tax revenues, what it's going to bring to the city, I think they will benefit the citizens and the taxpayers, and I think that it's a vision worth following, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Councilor Kiley.
And previously, you did state that currently there's zero debt within our parking system.
That's correct, zero debt.
Very good. I think that's an important point for all of us to remember. It's not like we're piling debt on top of other existing debt within our parking system.
Okay, thank you very much. Very enlightening, very informative, and we will look forward to, what, June sometime?
Early June.
Early June?
June is our goal, so.
Okay, super. Look forward to it, because this is an important, big project for the city of Sioux Falls. We got to get it right. Okay, seeing no other comments, I will adjourn this meeting. There is no